Welcome back to Arise Africa with me, Tokunbo Taiwo. Just before the break, we had a guest. We still have the guest in the studio. Yes, Somto Ajuluchukwu, founder of Vortex Corp. So thank you very much for holding on as we carry on this conversation. Now, what would you say has been the highlight of your journey so far in terms of comics and animation?
The highlight of the journey so far for me has just been, being at Comic-Cons like the MCM London or Nairobi Comic-Con or Lagos Comic-Con and just seeing the way the kids react to our products, It's so inspiring to know that, we can be heroes to these kids and we can give them things that I, wanted throughout my youth, That's a major highlight for me, and that inspires us to keep making these products. Another highlight was when we first launched the Vortex247.com platform, and we got in our first 500 subscribers. It was an ecstatic moment knowing that in just a few days of launching, people could react to our service that way, and we realized that there was a true a thirst for what we were doing, and we were moving in the right direction.
I'm glad you mentioned, subscribers, because you've grown from 500 to as much as 400,000. So how easy or how difficult was it, to get this much in terms of subscription?
It's been a difficult road. I must tell you that. It takes a lot of consistency. It takes a lot of effort. Even currently, we had situations that even cost us major setbacks at different points in time. But once you can identify your core audience, you can identify the people that are looking for your product, not just locally but across the world. You can speak their language, and you can create products that actually talk about real solutions. One thing that we focus at Vortex is our storytelling. Our mantra is exporting African culture, and we constantly, in whatever environment, whether we're making games or whether we're making cartoons or whether we're making comic books, we make sure that we're telling a story that our people can identify with, either in the diaspora or Africans.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that, most of the things that you said were challenges that you've had to go through and pull through from, so what would you say has kept you going despite all of those challenges that you faced in the past and so many of the setbacks that you've had in the past?
The dream, really. The dream is for us to, have an organization that can be a home, that can be a homemade brand like the Disneys and the Warner Brothers of our world. Create characters like as iconic as Superman, and that journey is a never-ending one. And it's, knowing how far we have to go constantly keeps me moving because there is no satisfaction. Also understanding that the stories that we're telling is a tool to reorganize and reconstruct the mind of the Black child, to make them understand certain truths that we put within our storytelling. Okay. So it's a revolutionary journey. It's understanding that the media is the one true way that we can represent ourselves and we can tell people about ourselves without that narrative being controlled. And we understand that it's not just a job or it's not just content, but it's a responsibility. And, I have an amazing team. I have amazing managers that I work with. During the darkest hours, they keep us going. Even sometimes this animation business could be really tough, I tell you, but sometimes you just have to keep it going. You have to keep on investing in it. You have to keep on finding people that want to, bring in value, and you just have to keep going.
You see, that's why I keep going back to, how you get through the setbacks. You give yourself pep talks. to move on.
Yeah, you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh no, today you gotta keep making it.
Okay. All right.
Making a cartoon of an hour or an hour 20 minutes or 2 hours a movie takes about 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so you're dedicating your soul into producing that content and working on those projects, and it takes constantly motivating yourselves. It takes constantly you know, rejuvenating the creativity. And it takes a village. It takes your whole team to do that. You know, you need the right energy around you and the vision to be sound.
Okay. Now, one thing that you've mentioned, you know, on quite a number of times is storytelling. You know, how do you usually get inspiration for, you know, what you want to put out there, especially considering the fact that you want it to be more Afrocentric?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a genre that we created called spirit fiction. And spirit fiction draws all its stories from our mythology, from African history, and from African spirituality. And that's the core of all our stories. You know, whatever stories we're telling have to are surrounded from our experiences and our heritage. And we have that as a key cornerstone. We have a few people on the team that, you know, focus on research. We have to constantly keep researching and constantly keep digging for knowledge. And the knowledge that we find becomes the stories that we tell.
Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to also gauge how Nigerians are actually reacting, because one of the things that you mentioned was spirituality, and most of the comic characters that I saw online, you know, had one spiritual character or another, and I was wondering, how are the Nigerian public, you know, reacting to some of those spiritual characters, because, you know, it's usually some sort of mixed reaction when it comes to spirituality. Yes, it is. So what sort of reactions have you been getting? You know, how, if they are negative, how negative, you know, and how do you cope with those reactions?
Oh yeah, we do get a lot of negative. You know, we get a lot of, keep this away from my child. You know, this is black magic, which was also one of the things that I spoke about during my TEDx. You know, it was to make people understand that our culture and our mythology and our spirituality is part of our history. And it's before any religion that we learned to accept and, you know, adopt. We had these beliefs. So what we do is try to, you know, obviously because it's a customer-based society and we want our people to connect with it, especially Nigerians, because this is our base, and this is one of the largest markets in Africa. We compromise sometimes. You know, we put a little bit of the superhero nature, and then we merge that with the spirituality, and then what we get is spirit fiction. What we do is, you know, as much as we you know, we look into our spirituality. We try not to compromise on the stories that we're telling, but we also make it lighthearted. So we can have a balance. It's all about just finding that balance.
Yeah. So Somto, I hear you, you know, and I hear where you're coming from, but I wanted to, like, you know, put it to the test in terms of, you know, a scenario where a parent has been, you know, upset about some of the content of your, you know, of your work. What do you say to them that calms them down, or, you know, allows them to further let their children engage in some of your work?
Yeah, we show them the values. You know, our comics are value first, you know, especially when we understand that these comics are within the age range. We show them, for example, we had a comic book called Mumu Juju. And because of the term juju in it, there was a lot of aggression already just from the title. She's like, no, why don't you buy this one? But what we told them was we opened the book for them and we showed them that, look at these two characters. You know, they are learning about friendship. You know, look at this part where he's kneeling down in front of his mother. That's respect. You know, look at this part where he's eating food. That's your native food, right?
Very enlightening.
You know, so we try to show them the bright side of our culture and our spirituality.
And that the glass is half full.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about some of your productions now. In terms of the soundtracks, how does that work? How do you get them? And do you tailor-make them to more Afrocentric tunes, or how does it all work?
Yes, we work with a lot of artists. You know, different artists, from sonic artists to writers and musicians. So for the music behind, there's a lot of talent in music in Nigeria. You know, there's a lot of talent in African music globally, and we just reach out, you know, and we try to work with it. Sometimes, because of time constraints and maybe logistics, sometimes we just license.
Okay.
We license some sounds as well.
Okay, good. Now, This is a question that I got from a few of viewers who are not sure. How do you make money from animation? How do you respond to that?
Definitely. Animation is it's a billion-dollar industry. You know, when you think of the Disneys and when you think of DreamWorks.
Yeah, but I think the question they're asking is not generally how you personally or how Vortex,
okay.
you know.
we make money. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
how, yeah.
Well, how we make money currently is we've worked with a lot of brands in terms of creating advertising material, in terms of creating brand material. But our primary way and our direction towards making money is content. Nowadays, platforms like Netflix and Amazon are way closer to us than we know, and they're licensing Nigerian content. Every day.
Mm-hmm.
The catalog is increasing.
Yeah.
Currently, we're working on a production which is poised to go there. All things being equal by God's grace.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking that into the universe. Those are the methods. Currently, we even do short-term licensing.
Okay.
We worked on a show with Accelerate TV.
Okay.
It's a YouTube channel,
mm-hmm.
and we create content like that on a bit. The cartoon industry locally here is still on the rise, meaning that a lot of people, because of the cost of production of animation,
mm-hmm.
don't want to engage.
Yeah.
But what we do, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
But what we do as a studio is we subsidize the cost by bearing a lot of responsibility and sharing ownership of these intellectual property.
Okay.
So
now,
we can make it.
Most of the things that you mentioned were quite a number of streams by which you can make money. Is business then lucrative in Nigeria?
It's lucrative to a certain measure, but not enough.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're running out of time, but there's one more critical question I want to ask before we go on a quick break. How do you respond to critics who think your work is not up to par internationally?
I tell them that yes, obviously, you must start somewhere. And the growth is an endless journey. The animation industry, when you look at our predecessors, which are the Disney and the rest of them, they mm-hmm. started in the 1930s. Okay. And what you're seeing now is it's a journey of 70 years.
So in a nutshell, it's a step. It's a step-by-step process.
It's a step-by-step process.
All right then, Somto, it's been wonderful having a conversation with you. Thank you so much for enlightening us.
Thank you so much for having me, Tokunbo.